To set the smile, he might have said that, but how will it connect with opening the mouth and closing it? When he enters the inner room, again there are many scenes which are very interesting. What are those? The photographer is not happy with the ears of the author. He tells that ears are not proper, so you need to droop them. Is it possible? When he saw the photograph, the author was not able to identify his own image. Why? Hello everyone, this is Shobita S. Aradhya, Lecturer, Department of English, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. A warm welcome to you all. Do you know what I'm going to discuss today? Yes, for the B.C.A. first sem, I will be discussing a prose called With a Photographer. Yes, title itself says there is something interesting in this prose, right? Yes, this is very interesting. Even you might be having experience of getting a photo in a photographer's studio, and you might be having good experiences or might be some weird experiences also. Let us see in this chapter what experience the author has got. Okay, let us start without any delay the chapter With the Photographer. Yes, this With the Photographer is written by Stephen Leacock. Stephen Leacock has written his experience in this prose part. As usual, we'll discuss all these components, the author, who is the author, what are the awards he has got, or some details about author, then title and theme, importance or significance of title and theme. Then we'll go to summary, we'll know what is the chapter all about, and we'll discuss some literary devices also. Then finally, we'll discuss question and answers. Now, let me start from the beginning about the author. As I already said, Stephen Leacock is the author of this piece of prose. Stephen Leacock is a modern English prose writer. He has written prose and he writes, means he started his writing in the modern English era. So, he belongs to today's era. He has written in the modern English. He has written many prose pieces. So, he has not gone much into poetry, but he has written prose pieces. All his prose pieces are known for his subtle humor. Humor is there in his writing, and that is subtle. Means when you read it, it seems to be serious, but later you will understand what is the humor inside. It will make you smile and read the remaining part of the piece. They talk about real life situations. All his prose parts, they talk about real life situations, what somebody has experienced or might be the experience of author himself, are written in his prose. This is about the author Stephen Leacock. Next, why has he given the title With the Photographer? What is the theme of the prose? Here, we have the theme of insecurity, anger, appearance, confidence, acceptance and control. So, what are these going to do with a photographer? You might be having this question, but wait and see. We see insecurity of the person who has gone to take the photograph. Here, this is first person narration. So, author only, whatever experience he had in the studio, that is narrated. So, what insecurity he feels there, and the anger which he controls a lot, that will be seen in this, and appearance, how he was, how he looked, that is mentioned here, and confidence, how he lost his confidence and later how he gained the confidence to speak out, that we are going to see. Then acceptance, so how he has accepted himself, what has he accepted in this chapter, all those we will see. And control, for more time he controls himself and then he burst out, so that we will be seeing. It is also noticeable that the photographer takes dislike to the narrator's appearance, judging it to be wrong. So, what happens here is the narrator goes to take a photo and the photographer tells that your face is not proper, it is wrong. It is quite wrong. So, in what way it was wrong, that we will see in detail now. So, this is the summary. One day, Leacock went to the studio to take his photograph. The photographer looked at him without enthusiasm. So, the photographer had a drooping shoulder and he was like very boring personality at the first look. He did not show any enthusiasm when the customer had come. Usually studio people, what they do, they'll be waiting for customers to come, right? They'll welcome with a smile. But this photographer, he did not show any enthusiasm when the narrator went to take the photo. He made the author to wait for an hour. Then he took him into the inner room to take a photo. First, what the photographer did, he made him to sit outside in the veranda. He was made to sit there, and later, after 1 hour, he was called in. So, for this 1 hour, what could the narrator do? What he did was, he read the magazines which were left there. And do you know what magazines he read? Like Ladies' Companion, Girl's Friend, something like that, which were related only to women. He read all those magazines because he wanted to pass the time. It doesn't mean that he was very serious about that, or maybe he found only those magazines in the studio. So he tried to read all those. So he was having fun reading all those. He was just passing the time there because he was made to wait for an hour to take a photograph. After that, the photographer, he lets him into the inner room to take a photo. So when he enters the inner room, again there are many scenes which are very interesting. What are those? Let us see here. He placed a machine in front of the author, but the photographer was not happy with the author's face. Instead, he commented his face was quite wrong. So what happened here? The author went inside, and when he went there, he was made to sit on a chair. In front of him, the photographer brought a big machine. Okay, so this is the story when the photography was not that popular, or these cameras were of not the modern technology. Today we have digital cameras, but those days they were the boxes, huge box behind which the photographer used to stand and take the photo. So they occupied a large space in a room. They were not like the handy cameras what we have today. So it was a big machine which he pulled in front of the author, and photographer was not happy with the face of the author. Means the one who had come to take his photo, his face was not proper according to the photographer. What was wrong? He says that his face was quite wrong. Means completely his face was wrong. It was not appropriate to take a picture. Now tell me, how do you feel if somebody says your face is not proper? Will you accept that? Is it possible? No. That is what the theme tells, acceptance. Here it is difficult for the author to accept this, that his face is not fine, his face is wrong, correct? The author accepted it. The photographer added that it would look better if it was 3/4 full. See, he is telling the proportion now. So the photographer is telling it would be good if it was 3/4 full. Means it is small now. If it was little bigger, it would be good. Or that proportion should have been looked good if your face was like that. Okay. If somebody comments on your face like this, will you spare them? If I was in that place, I would not spare the photographer. But here, this author, he accepted, because those days photography was rare. The cameras, the studio people were rare, but he wanted his photo. So he accepted that for that time. To prove his skill in photography, he asked the author to open his mouth and close it. Okay. So to prove that he has got skills in photography, the photographer, what he did was, he asked the author to open his mouth and close. Don't know what it worked. Maybe to set the smile, he might have said that, but how will it connect with opening the mouth and closing it, right? You must be having all these questions. Yes, anybody will have this, but it was the skill of the photographer. Maybe to position the jaws, he might have told that. He felt that the author's ears were bad, so he asked him to droop them a little more. Oh, now the photographer is not happy with the ears of the author. He tells that ears are not proper, so you need to droop them. Is it possible? Sometimes it happens, which we don't know. We can't control our ears and all. They can't be moved. Hands and legs can be moved. But what about the ears? But here the photographer is asking the author to droop the ears. Droop means to bring down. Like shoulder droop means bringing it down like this. He wanted to bring it down. Don't know with what sense he told all those. He asked Leacock to roll his eyes under the eyelids, to put the hands on knees. See, to roll his eyes under the eyelids. So, take it up, little up, so that you should see the camera or the photo should be proper. Okay, so these were the skills what the photographer had. And he's telling the posture now. What is the posture? To put the hands on knees, to keep his hands on the knees and give a proper posture. To turn the face little upward, to expand the lungs. Turn the face upwards is okay, but to expand the lungs means, how is it possible? So, if you see your parents or grandparents' photos especially, you'll see that they will maintain the same posture. Everybody will be sitting, keeping their hands on their knees and coming forward a little, lifting their chin up, and that is the usual posture for photographs. Okay, so to tell that he might have told all this, expand the lungs so that your shoulder will be broadened. Okay, to tell that he might have told expand the lungs. To bend the neck, see how to do. Here he is asking to turn the face little upward and to bend the neck. Now you should start imagining the skills and the way how the author was sitting in the studio. By all means, he wanted the best feature and expression of the author. What did the photographer want? He wanted to capture the best photograph of the author. But what was he not happy with? He was not happy with the face of the author. Okay, so he is trying all that he knew to make the changes to bring the best feature of the photograph. By the photographer's comment about his face, he felt humiliated. Definitely he has to. When photographer commented your face is not quite good, it is wrong, or your ears are not proper, roll your eyelids, all those, when somebody comments on our appearance, we feel bad, right? So here the author also felt humiliated when photographer said that his face was wrong. He couldn't bear the insult anymore as his face was his own only. Now, author, can he take out his face and replace? No, replacing face is not possible, right? So that was the face he had since he was born. With that face only he was living all these years. With that face only he has his friends, he had his family, everything he was having with that face itself, right? So when he got humiliated by the photographer, now author felt like it is enough now. Okay, so he felt that that was his face only. He has lived with its face and he has to live with the same face in the upcoming days also. He had lived with it for 40 years and he knew its faults. So he was living, means now the author's age is 40 years. For all the 40 years he is living with that face and he knew what are the faults also. Every day we look at ourselves in the mirror and we will be knowing what are the faults, how better our face could be, or what is there and what isn't there, correct? The author was angry and started to rise from the seat. The photographer took his photograph. Now the photographer, so here I should mention, to take a photograph, the photographer has to go behind that huge machine and there was a cloth put on that, black thick cloth. He has to cover himself inside. So when the photographer went inside and covered himself, first time the author felt that photographer is doing some prayer because he did not move, he did not talk when he was inside. So what the author felt was the photographer is praying. But when he went the second time, the author understood what is happening inside that machine. Okay, here the author was angry and he started to move. He was supposed to leave the studio. He was very angry. He told, I am living with this face. I want this face only. Why will we go to take the photographs? Because we want the photograph to remember, right? Here the author also wanted to take a photograph so that he'll leave it when after he dies. After he dies, at least his family members will keep that photo to remember him. Okay, so with that intention, the author had been to the photographer, but here photographer insults him. So what the author does, he leaves the room. But before he leaves, before he could stand up, at that time when the photographer got to know that author is going to move, he took the picture. So he captured the photograph of the author now. Okay. He asked him to come on Saturday. The photographer told that I have taken your picture. You come on Saturday. I'll be giving you your photo. On Saturday, the author went back to the studio to get his photograph. As it was told by the photographer, the author went to the studio on Saturday. The photographer showed his photo. So the photo was ready. Photographer showed the photo to the author. How was the photo now? Because photographer had used all his skills now to pull his lungs, to upward his face and to bring the neck down, correct? Eyelids, eyes, everything, droop your ears. He had told whatever he could tell, right? Now the author was eager to see his photograph. The author was not able to identify his own image in it. When he saw the photograph, the author was not able to identify his own image. Why? Will there be difference in photograph? If your photograph is taken, it will be the same as you are, right? But here there were many changes. He was not looking like his own because the photographer made so many changes in his eyes, eyebrow, mouth, etc. So what the photographer had done? He had made so many changes to his eyes. So that correction was done. So he had put some solution to remove the eyebrows. His eyebrows were removed. And for eyes also he had made some animation what he could do at that time. And his mouth also changed. So if your things, means your face, mouth, nose, ears, all those are changed, how will your photograph look like yours? Isn't it? The photograph didn't look like the author's photo at all. So the author asked the question, is it me? How the author must have felt. He went to take a photograph which will keep his family members and friends remember him for their lifetime after his death, right? But this photograph did not look like him. How would the author felt that time? So he asked, is it me? Are you giving my photograph? Is it me in this photograph? Okay. And what did the photographer tell to the author? The author wanted a photograph that would have looked like him. He wanted something that would depict his face as God has given him. Okay. So how he wanted the photograph to be the same as he is and as God has given him. He did not want any changes. What the photographer has done? He has completely changed his face. He wanted something that his friends might have kept after his death to reconcile them to his loss. But what the author wanted was no longer done. He wanted his friends and family members to reconcile the loss. The loss would be if the author dies, that will be a loss to his friends and his family members, right? So to keep his memories, he wanted his photo to be kept with them. For that reason, he went to take the photograph. But what has happened here? With what intention the author went, that was not fulfilled. Okay, that was no longer done because photographer has shown his extra skill in the photograph. Leacock didn't accept the photo given by the photographer because the photo was too beautiful to bear any resemblance to his appearance. Now see what is mentioned here. The photo was too beautiful to bear any resemblance. So here the author accepts that his looks were not good. But he did not want the other photo also because it was not having any resemblance. It was too beautiful than what he actually was. So he is not liking, he refused to take the photograph. Leacock preferred his feature less face as it is and would not accept any improved one which is unlike his face. So what he says, he want his face, means what featureless face he has. He want the same photograph and not the improved one. The improved one did not resemble him, did not look like him. So he did not want that as his photograph. So this is what he says. So it was a very embarrassing situation for the author because he wanted his photo. The photo was taken with great difficulty after hearing all those, but he had to accept that his face is not quite good. Everything was fine, But when he went to take the photo, photographer had made so many changes. As I told you, his eyebrows were removed and some changes were made to his mouth, ears, eyes, everything. Okay, so he was not happy with the photo. He refused to take the photo and left the studio. If such incidents happens to you, how would you react? Nowadays, there is no need of studio to take our photos. We have our mobiles and we take our selfies. But for any occasion, we need photographer, right? If that photographer irritates you like the one who did in this lesson, how would you face him? What would you do when you are with that kind of person? Think it and let me know. Now let us discuss the question answers. Why did the author go to the photo studio? Definitely, the author went to the photo studio to have his photograph taken. Describe the photographer. How was the photographer? The photographer was a drooping man, means his shoulders were down, was bent, his eyes were dim like eyes of a natural scientist. Why is this photographer compared to natural scientist? Because scientists will be busy in their inventions, experiments, so they don't have time to spend for themselves. They'll be in a tension to invent something, right? So this photographer is compared because he has shown so many skills in the photo of the author. He was wearing a grey suit. So he was wearing a grey suit and his eyes were dim like natural scientist, and also he was a drooping man and slightly bent. What was Leacock reading at the studio? Leacock was reading the Ladies' Companion, the Girls' Magazine and the Infant's Journal. This means he was not reading anything serious but reading for fun. Okay. Then, how did the inner room get light? So, when he went inside the inner room, the lightings were not the natural ones. So, the sun rays were not naturally coming in. So, there were some curtains put up. Okay. The inner room got light through a sheet of factory cotton hung against the frosted skylight. So, where the skylight, in those days, there were space left in the roof for skylight. Okay. So, even there were some sheet of factory cotton, means some thick cotton cloth was put up there to reduce the sunlight. What had the photographer done with the author's eyes? So, what was done to his eyes? He made so many changes to the photograph of the author's face that it did not look like his own, correct? He removed the eyebrows. His eyebrows were removed and he had retouched the eyes, means the eyes spacing, means the broadness, the length, everything, the eyelid, the eyeball, all those were retouched. Some changes were made to his eyes. Why did Leacock assume that the photographer was praying? Why he felt that photographer is praying? The photographer hid himself behind the camera under a cloth. He did not speak anything for some time. As I told you, this camera was a broad machine behind which the photographer will go and cover himself in that cloth. So, it was not like the sunlight filter was there. There was no filter in that. So, sunlight has to be avoided. So, they used to pull a cloth on themselves and on the camera also. So, the photographer went behind the machine and covered himself with that cloth and he did not speak anything for some time. So, the author assumed that the photographer was praying. Okay. So, these are the question answers which might be asked, or these are the short answers to be discussed. Today, we have discussed about the prose with the photographer written by Stephen Leacock. Hope you enjoyed this session. You have learnt what is this prose and what are the possible questions asked and what was the experience of the author. I'll meet you in the next session with some more interesting prose and we'll discuss more on that. Until then, take care, bye-bye and thank you.